Hi, all. Welcome to Reading Guidance. My name is Molly. I'm an astrologer bringing you the temporal waves or the cosmic weather for the month of November 2024. If you'd like a one-to-one session, I offer natal chart, astrocartography, synastry, and relationship sessions. You can find that on my website, radiantguidance.com, linked below. Without further ado, let's talk about November. So on the left-hand side here, those are just some of the main exact aspects that the plants will be making in the month of November and the dates that that exactitude occurs. And then on the right hand side, we have the lunations. I don't have it, but there is another new moon in the month of November. And I'll talk about that in my days of harmony. But we essentially have three major lunations in November, beginning today with the first new moon of the month in Scorpio, in Swati nakshatra and the sidereal zodiac. Swati is represented by a blade of grass blowing in the wind, and it's all about the dissemination of information, networking, connection. Now, it's interesting because this new moon chart really sets the tone for the themes of the month ahead. And as you know, if you live in the US, this is a very big month politically. And all of the planets in the traditional 9 planet system in the new moon chart are in nakshatras ruled by either Saturn or Rahu. And both these planets have a lot to do with the structure of society, and Rahu has a lot to do with innovation and also medicine. So we could see either large scale outbreaks in illnesses or potentially innovations in the field of medicine and health to keep in mind for the month ahead. We have the full moon in Taurus, so Western Taurus. It'll be in sidereal Aries and Krittika. And Krittika is all about cutting to the truth of something, excising. It is a destructive nakshatra that can allow us to cut out things that don't serve. It can be great for fire rituals or fire ceremonies. When the moon is in this particular section of the sky, anything that has to do with purification. And again, seeing the themes from the new moon today, it might be a good month to really like hone in on the structures and routines and things that affect your body that help support your body during this time. Also, with the less light in the sky in many parts of the world and just that more inward draw, you might be feeling called to take better care of your physical vessel. So that area of the sky that Taurus is in, where we find, the Pleiadian star system, the fixed star Aldebaran in the bull's eye, the constellation Orion, this is all getting very active this month because we'll have a meteor shower that's peaking in this area of the sky called the Taurid meteor shower. And there's a southern and northern kind of version of them because it's essentially ice and dust emanating from this comet Encke. And it's such a large comet that it takes the Earth a while to pass through, that there's two peaks of this meteor shower. And I think the one on the 5th will be really visible and really awesome if you can get outside on the evening of the 5th to view that. It'll be visible everywhere except for the South Pole, essentially. And you don't have to just look to that area of the sky. You might just look anywhere and see a lot of shooting stars on the 5th. But because it's so close to that new moon, there'll be a lot of visibility. And then on the 12th is another night that you can get out and see that. On the 17th, there's going to be another meteor shower in the Leo constellation. And on the 29th, there's going to be a potentially visible comet to keep an eye out for. And I don't know if any of you caught that comet or saw photos of the comet from last month, but between like all the aurora kind of photos and even where I was living in New Mexico, you could see the aurora. I missed it, but so many people took photos. There's just a lot going on cosmically, it feels like. On a collective level, we're definitely feeling tensions rising in the US with the election on the 5th. And it's worth noting, I looked at that chart for the 5th, and we have both Jupiter and Saturn retrograde during the election. Saturn will turn direct on the 15th, but I think it's interesting that we have that going on. So there's like the energy of delay. And we also have the planet Mercury at a fateful degree in a vulnerable part of the sky in Scorpio in the sidereal zodiac. And so this vulnerability can give potential complications in the counting and receiving of the votes for this election. Venus is also at the last degree of Scorpio in a kind of critical degree as well. And so it'll be interesting, but though I've already kind of predicted, I haven't made like a US prediction video, but I think Kamala will win this election. But it'll be after perhaps some weird kind of complications similar to that in some of our years prior elections where there was like disputes and questioning of the counting or the submission and validity of votes. So we might see similar themes and unexpected complicating factors. But when Saturn does go direct on the 15th, if there has been any area of your life impacted, particularly like the structural stuff or responsibility things that have been delayed or faced delays, on the 15th you might notice more forward motion with those things and less delays and complications. As you can see, Mercury will go retrograde on the 25th, but the shadow is really on the 7th, what we call the pre-shadow. So keep that in mind. And Mercury is doing something very interesting this month that it reaches its greatest elongation. And a lot of kind of financial people who have an interest in astrology and the way that the cycles affect the markets have done some interesting kind of research and found that when Mercury reaches its greatest elongation, marks these pivotal market points where there's pivotal turns within the financial market. And there's some examples of that. And so it can cause increased volatility in the market and also changes like from a bullish to a bearish market, etc. And so just astronomically speaking, it's the greatest elongation refers to when Mercury appears the furthest from the sun as viewed from Earth. Mercury can only ever be in the same sign as the sun or the sign before or the sign after it. And I always tell people that I teach or who are learning astrology, it's a fun kind of party trick. If you know someone's sun sign, you can guess their Mercury sign by the way that they communicate. And usually you can kind of deduct it, use the elements to deduce what their Mercury sign is because it can only be one of three options. So that's a fun little thing to do. But essentially, there have been other points in history when Mercury reaches its greatest elongation, like the 2008 financial crisis. It coincided with that massive stock market crash. The 2016 US presidential election, where the financial markets were really volatile leading up to and after this election during that Mercury elongation. And then the COVID-19 pandemic crash also coincided with Mercury at its greatest elongation. So these are just interesting kind of to note. I'm not a financial astrologer or a financial advisor, but it will be interesting because we know that this particular instance is also coinciding with an election. And so we'll see how, with resources, they get affected. So for the days of intensity, I don't have too many this month, but the main ones I saw were pretty volatile days, I won't lie. On the 7th, we have a Moon-Pluto conjunction, and the Moon is also opposite Mars, and Mercury is opposite Uranus. So I do have an accident alert for that day. It is, not the day to go skydiving or do any like extreme risky thing. On November 13th, we've got the moon squaring Mars, and then the moon is opposite Pluto, and we have Mercury squaring Saturn. On the 19th, the moon is with Mars opposite Pluto, and Mars is in conjunct or semi-sextiles of what we call it, Venus. And so this is a stressful kind of tense aspect between the passive and active forces, the masculine and the feminine. On November 27th, we've got the moon squaring Pluto and Mars, a little bit of a T-square. Let's get into the days of harmony. So on the 3rd and 4th, we've got a moon with Venus. So that'll be also really cool right before that meteor shower peak on the 5th. And maybe even on the 5th, you'll be able to spot the moon in close proximity to the planet Venus. And then Venus is opposing Jupiter. On November 11th, the moon on the 3rd and 4th will be in Anuradha Nakshatra, which is all about prosperous for finances, accounting related work, any sort of occult or contemplative activities, and healing. On November 11th, the moon is conjunct Neptune, trining Mars and Mercury. This will be a great, very meditative and contemplative day. A good day to do yoga or puja or any type of ceremony because the moon will be in Purva Bhadrapada, a very spiritual nakshatra connected to Pisces and surrendering to the flow of spirit. On November 16th, we have an exalted Rohini moon conjunct Jupiter. This is a very fruitful day for growing anything that you want to grow. And as I mentioned, Saturn will be direct on this day. And we're slightly before, oh no, we're still in the Mercury retrograde pre-shadow them, but nonetheless, I think it's still a really nice day of harmony. The moon will be trining Pluto and Venus will be sextiling Saturn. So it's a good day for kind of growing things that you want to last, any sort of financial activities, any sort of, obviously it's not the time of year for gardening, but metaphorically along those lines, like what do you want to grow? What do you want to feed? What do you want to nourish on the 16th? On November 23rd, we've got the moon trining Venus and Mars sextiling Jupiter. The moon will be in the nakshatra Purva Falguni, the star of fortune. And so any artistic, creative activities, purchases, again, barring that's Mercury retrograde, but sensuality, let's say, or dealing with people in power, any sort of relational things will be really good on November 23rd. On November 25th, we've got the moon trining Jupiter, the moon sextiling the sun and Mercury in Hasta Nakshatra. So this is all about the hands and anything that we might do with our hands. It can also be good for treating illnesses, and it can be great for buying and selling as well. But again, keep in mind it's retrograde, so there could be delays. On November 30th, the new moon is opposite Jupiter, trining Neptune and Mars. This is a very kind of spiritual and contemplative day. Again, it's the second new moon of the month, which is kind of a rare occurrence, but we will have 2 new moons this month. And yes, we're entering that kind of more dark and contemplative time of the year. If you guys would like more detailed forecast related to your specific chart and understanding the unique phase of life and cycle you find yourself in, you can always book with me in the links below. If you like this channel, please like the video, share, subscribe. It really helps and supports this work. I wish you all a beautiful month ahead.